Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. Should Stephanie Stuckey sell pecans on Amazon? Should Laura Zander wholesale yarn to discounters? Should Jay Goltz's businesses be active on Pinterest? Assuming Jay knows what Pinterest is. This week we cover those issues, plus whether the owners are ready for an economic boom, and how Laura made the painful decision to fire several employees she inherited when she bought her wholesale yarn business in Texas. You have to do it, says Jay, and it doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a bad boss if you don't do it. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations will, if nothing else, let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which highlights the most important news of the day for business owners, and which you can subscribe to at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. This week's lineup features Jay Goltz, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, Artist Frame Service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. Stephanie Stuckey, who is CEO of Stuckey's, the snack and road stop business famous for its pecan log rolls. And Laura Zander, who is CEO of Jimmy Bean's Wool, a digital yarn store that is based in Reno, Nevada, and also owns a wholesale supplier, Madelinetosh, in Fort Worth, Texas. The episode is titled, I Hope You're Not Torturing Yourself. Before we get started, one of the recurring themes of this podcast is that marketing is hard for smaller businesses. One reason it's hard is that we are all besieged by self-appointed digital marketing gurus who overwhelm us with outlandish promises. On the other hand, there's Steve Krull, co-founder of Be Found Online. A loyal listener to the 21 Hats podcast, Steve understands the business owners who listen to this podcast because he is one. He knows his stuff, but he's also a real person who you can have a real conversation with. And if you tell him I sent you, you can get a free consultation with Steve himself. Just shoot him an email at steve@befoundonline.com to schedule your talk. That's steve@befoundonline.com. Now on to the show. Welcome, Jay, Stephanie, and Laura. Today, and I hope you guys are ready for this and can handle it, we actually have some good news to talk about. As we discussed last week, it's been quite a year, but all of a sudden, cases are down, vaccinations are up, a huge stimulus bill just passed, and economists are talking about a historic boom later this year. Are you guys ready for it?
Yes.
No.
Stephanie, you're ready?
Yes. So ready.
Have you seen anything pick up already?
Store sales are picking up. Orders are starting to gradually rise. So yes. And we're getting some very good leads from potential large big box retail accounts, all within the past couple weeks.
Are you prepared to handle that kind of pickup in business? Can you gear up for it?
We are working on it. And as listeners who heard the last podcast I participated in will know in the last couple that we've purchased a manufacturing facility. So we're in the process of getting packaging and getting our own product line made at this existing candy plant and pecan snack plant. So we're working on it. We really are trying to scale up, but already we're concerned that we might not have the capacity. So we're already looking into what additional equipment we'll have to buy, how to expand our space, and we might even need to staff up as well. Already.
You just bought the facility.
Yeah, 6 weeks ago.
And you're concerned about capacity.
Yes.
That's a good problem, I guess.
Well, I think part of what happened was I was putting out on social media that we'd bought this candy plant, and it got a lot of circulation because it's an interesting story, I think, and others agreed. And so that prompted people contacting us, letting us know that they're interested in buying our product. Now that they know we are in the manufacturing business, we can offer better margins because we make the product ourselves, and we can offer private labeling. And that's of interest to a lot of retailers. So we're getting very good leads without even having to pay a rep or a broker. We're getting these on our own organically, which is exciting.
Interesting. Laura, you guys actually did pretty well during the pandemic when people were stuck at home. Are you concerned that as things open up, your business might actually drop off?
No, not a ton. Actually, I think that we'll probably see a boom. It's funny you say that we did pretty well because, like Stephanie, we bought a factory or a manufacturing company a year right before the pandemic hit. One side of our business, the business that we bought in Texas, saw a huge drop in revenue. And I know this because I've started running the numbers again to compare against like 2019. I mean, like a 50% drop.
And that's because that's the wholesale part of your business, right? And you were selling to retailers who were shut down.
Part of it was wholesale. Part of it was that. Part of it was COVID, and we've probably had 50% of our staff contract the virus, and so attendance has been a huge issue. So our production capacity has just been nailed. But then the Reno, the e-commerce side of the business has done really well. But on the flip side, we lost over probably $1.5 million from our retail store and from the in-person events. So it's this really interesting mix of part of the business has done really, really, really well as a result, and then other parts of the business have done miserably.
Do you think you lost any business because the people that were buying from this manufacturer, you bought it, you're a retailer, you're competing with them on some level? Do you think that you lost some business from that they don't want to buy from you because of that?
We forced a little bit of that to happen. So our two largest competitors happen to also be discounters. So we stopped selling to them on the manufacturing side, and they were two of the top 3 or 4 accounts. So we made a strategic decision that we would only sell to people who sell the product at full price as a premier brand. And so, yes, definitely. I mean, we lost a big chunk of revenue as a result of that.
Are you still glad you did it?
Absolutely. 100%. Because we're actually seeing, a huge increase in interest as a result of that. And we think that personally, even though it's less likely to make us rich in the short term, long term, we think it's the better thing to do for our industry and for the yarn industry and for the small independent yarn shops.
I'm a little curious as to fair market trading, I assume you've looked into this. What's the laws on that? Can you insist they sell it at full price? That's legal?
I don't know the exact answer to that. I think you can do it. I don't know really how to do it.
I think it may be that you can't tell somebody what price to set for a product they're selling at retail, but I think you can choose not to sell someone who routinely discounts your product, which is, I think, what you did.
Yeah, and that's what we did.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The long term, it's better for the industry because the whole magic of the internet is it's driven prices down to where whoever gets the sale can't make any money on it. So, margins still count.
It's tragic. I mean, it's really, really hurt our industry, which is, similar to, let's say, the running store industry or, it's a passion-led industry, the guitar industry. And so you've got these couple of really huge brands that are taking up, now we've learned today, $83 million in sales, and they're selling everything at 20, 30, 40% off. So that's $83 million that's not going into the pockets of small independent run shops that are selling at like regular price.
I think the key being they're selling and supporting the industry. They're helping the customers. They're the ones that are introducing customers to your industry. And that's a problem, that the people that are providing services are losing sale. I've heard stories where people go into the shoe store. They think nothing of trying on the shoes. Okay, thanks a lot. I'm going to order them on Amazon now or on Zappos. I mean, they think nothing of telling the shoe guy or the shoe woman in the store that you just wasted 20 minutes of their time and now they're going to go order them online. That's a terrible thing.
We've had that experience with Stuckey's where, not to a significant extent, but where wholesalers will buy product from us and then they'll sell on their website at a lower price than what we sell on our website. So the choice is we can choose not to sell to them. And you can make a decision when they next place an order, we're not going to sell to them. Another thing is just to be very brand forward and aggressive about buying from us, buying from the Stuckey's website. And we actually are having some serious discussion about whether we should continue to sell our product on Amazon and just have our product is only available on the Stuckeys.com website or in retail stores. But if you want to buy it online, you go to our website, period.
That's what we did. When we took this business over, they were on Amazon, they were on, all kinds of things, and we took it off of everything. And then on our site, the Madeline Tosh site, we increased the prices above MSRP, above what we wanted our shops to sell stuff at, so that it was a detractant. We're trying to drive people to go to the local yarn shops, and they only come to this site if they have no other option.
I don't think consumers realize that they aren't helping small independent businesses when they go to Amazon. The prices that they charge, the fees, we are barely making a profit on Amazon, and that's what prompted this discussion. And I think if we do make the move, it would be accompanied by an aggressive outreach to our customers to say, this is why we're making this decision, and support small businesses. Go to our websites, purchase from our websites. We can deliver now. We can't necessarily ship overnight or be as quick as Amazon, but Amazon isn't as fast as they used to be. So it's actually allowing some of us to be more competitive with them on their shipping.
Well, and if you think about it, like Stuckey's isn't about quick shipping, right? Stuckey's, the whole brand, in my mind, as a consumer and as somebody who used to go, it's about the road trip. It's about taking your time. It's about, really appreciating things, which is kind of diametrically opposed to the whole Amazon model. So from a brand standpoint, it really makes it like it's worth the wait.
Yeah. And we're small, and we're a comfort brand. We're a nostalgic brand. Amazon is not aligned with what our brand is.
Some small retailers choose to be on Amazon just because so many people discover products there.
That's right.
That's where people search. And I know some people who have tried to sell a little bit on Amazon just to have that presence, but try to drive most of the sales through their own site. Have either of you thought about that?
That's what we're doing. We did have pecans and our pecan log rolls on the site, and we're taking the pecans down. They're probably down already. They were supposed to be down a couple days ago. And we're just selling our pecan log rolls. That's it. And so if you want the full suite of Stuckey's product, you go to our website.
Is that full suite SWEET or SUITE?
That's very punny.
Laura, have you started to see any pickup? Any changes based on the economy picking up a little bit?
No, it's still pretty steady. So it's not, we'll see when the stimulus checks come out next week or so. We're kind of preparing for that because we'll get a big, huge bump out of that.
You've seen that before when the checks have come out?
Yep, totally. Now we have a track record, to go by.
Are you at all concerned about your capacity to keep up if business really picks up?
Yeah, we're actually booked through the end of the year already in our Texas location. So we're really struggling. Part of that is, we got flooded, so we lost about 10 days of capacity. We had to let a couple people go, as, we've talked about before. And then, we moved a month ago. So it's one thing after another, it feels like. But yes, so we're booked up. We're booked up for the rest of the year.
Hey, Lauren, I want to add something about the browsing because I think that's a really good comment you made, that there are consumers who go to Amazon just to get a feel for what's out there. And I've recently started to have more of a presence for Stuckey's on Pinterest. And Pinterest users do the same thing. They go there to browse. And we've seen quite a bit of traction. Now, it's only been a month, so I'm just getting that first 4 weeks worth of data to analyze. But our conversion rate is pretty good for having just gotten on there. I noticed Pinterest started popping up where all I'd done was place a few photos. And so I hired a woman at a very reasonable price to help me create a more professional look, and it's starting to pay off. So I'm hoping to get that browsing experience still for our consumers, but just not on the Amazon site.
Laura, are you on Pinterest? I bet you are.
Yeah, it's funny that... Oh, it's funny that you would mention that, Stephanie, because we just had a meeting this morning about our Pinterest return on investment. And we actually, when you had asked about us putting, our products on Amazon so that people recognize them, personally, I don't want people to associate our brand with Amazon. So I don't want them to discover us that way. I would like them to discover us through Pinterest because our brand aligns more with Pinterest, right? It's a little more artistic. It's, it's less about the transaction. So yeah, we have started to see, I think the number that we got today is that last month, maybe we put in $45 and we got a return of $4,200.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. The numbers aren't huge.
So you doubling down on that?
Yeah, I know. I was like, I'll give you another $45. The numbers, the volume just isn't huge, but the ROI is really great. I don't know that we can't put in $90 and get 9,000. There's a cap there.
Do you know that because you tested it?
I haven't, but yeah, our team did.
Jay, are you on Pinterest?
I believe so. I'd have to chalk to my Pinterest division.
Laura and Stephanie, do you think there's a place on Pinterest for somebody who sells picture frames and art?
No, not the framing. Jason Holmes on Pinterest, I'm sure.
It's artistic, it's crafty, it's DIY, it's people looking for ideas, it's decorating, a lot of home renovations and people designing rooms that totally fits within picture framing.
I'm sure we're on it. You just have to remember, I'm stuck here in 1997.
Why are you stuck in 1997?
Because that's when the last time I felt comfortable with the technology that was available. I have never been on Pinterest. It's not my thing, but I know we do all that stuff.
Well, running a small business is getting outside your comfort zone. I am not at all comfortable with video content, and I am forcing myself to do short form videos. I posted a couple on Instagram this week. I actually posted a couple on LinkedIn. So you got to get out there because that's what drives sales.
The other option is you don't get out of your comfort zone. You hire people that are comfortable in that zone and have them do it. And that's what I've done.
I've done a mix of that. You do have to understand the medium in order to effectively interact with whoever. You can't just hire them and say, okay, go.
No, they work for me. They're full-time employees here. They understand what we do. I'm not outsourcing it. They know what we do, and they do it extremely well.
Yeah, I'm outsourcing.
Jay, if we were talking about accounting and numbers, you would say that an owner has to have a working understanding of the way the numbers work and be able to keep an eye on what your people are doing to make sure that you're comfortable with it. Doesn't that apply to marketing as well?
Because the numbers are how you make a living. And I do get feedback from people that say, oh, I went to your site and you know what? I just can't be everything on everything, and I'm okay with that. I can't. Maybe I'll change the word to can't to. I just don't want to. It's like, you know what? I've got really competent people doing it. I hear nothing but positive things about all of these things. Sales are solid. So I'm the opposite of the micromanager. I just don't have the head to go do that, and it's working. So I'm not arguing with you that maybe that'd be a good thing to spend some energy on. I got 10 other things that I'm spending energy on that I think are like this podcast, for instance. If I did that, could I be on this podcast? You tell me.
We're not going down that road, Jay.
Well, it's all about delegating and playing to your strengths, but I do think a certain amount of any business is going to require that you get outside of what you're...
How many employees do you have?
On the management team, we're right around 10. I'm a little sketchy on that because we're merging 4 companies right now, and so we're still figuring out who's doing what. I mean, we went from 10 people for the entire company to we're right at 120 now since our merger. And a lot of those are seasonal line workers at the factory, but about 25, 30 are year round. So we're definitely in transition as far as staffing, but the social media is all consulting plus me. So I'm managing all of that with a very limited amount of spend on support.
Well, it's all about bandwidth, and each of us have a limited bandwidth, and we either choose to do what we think is most effective or we choose to do what we like, and I can't even argue. In some cases, yeah, maybe I could add something to it, though I doubt it. I don't choose. I have to tell you, I stopped driving myself crazy years ago. If I got something that's working and someone's in charge of it and it's working really well, I leave it alone. I try to put my energy into stuff that I think there's some opportunities in or that I think there's a problem with. So
Fair enough.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It does make sense. Laura, I wanted to go back to you. When you were talking about your operation in Texas, you referred to having to let some people go. Is there a story behind that?
Oh, yes.
Tell us about it.
Oh, God. And Stephanie, I'm so interested to hear your journey through acquiring this manufacturing company. And I can't wait to pick your brain about it. But, we bought this about a year ago, this one in Texas. And so there were a lot of, longtime employees, a lot of legacy employees. And we had a small group, 3 or 4 people who were just toxic, calling each other bitches and yelling at people and just, I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah. We had to put a rule down, after the trauma or the events of letting these guys go, that you are not allowed to call anybody these names and blah, blah, blah.
Wait. Can we go back before you let them go? Did you have a meeting with the entire staff and say, listen, I'm new here. I don't know what's been going on before I got here, but I just want to tell you how this company runs, and we don't do this, we don't do that. Here's what we do. Did they get told that you can't do that?
Yes. Multiple times. And we actually had let some people go last March because they had been creating, and I know Jay doesn't like this word, but, they had been creating drama. They'd gossiped, and had been talking to people about problems that those people couldn't solve.
I only don't like the word drama just because, I don't know, to me, I mean, that has a million different connotations. To
you it does, but Dana and I talked about it and we're like, we know what it means.
I know what it means.
Yes, it's very clear. So, yes, and it has been this kind of drama creation, this disrespectful behavior.
Okay, that I understand. Okay, that's in my wheelhouse. I get disrespectful behavior. That's clean, easy to identify.
So that has been something that was part of kind of the DNA of this business when we took it over. So we've been slowly kind of weeding, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, weeding out the people that are the ones that are causing some of the problems. But it's taken us a little bit longer to figure out who some of these people are. Anyway, we had a group of 5 people who decided not to show up to work multiple days in a row. And they had made a pact that if any of them got fired, they would all quit.
What reason did they offer for not showing up at work?
I don't want to go into it.
Was there a flood? There was a flood, wasn't there?
There was a flood, yes.
Was there no electricity?
No, we had electricity. The building flooded, so...
Was there locusts?
No. There were no locusts.
Is there a plague?
That's what I'm asking.
Was there a pandemic?
Wanted to know how many of these we can... I just want to know how many of these we can tick off, yeah. Okay.
Clearly there was a snitch in the ranks for you to have this information, though.
Well, it just is really obvious when everybody else shows up except for one core group of people. It's... anyway, so we let these people go. Then we find out, actually, so we fired 4 of them, and then one of them came in, a 5th one came in and said, I now have to quit. And we're like, okay. And she told us we had formed a pact, and if anybody got fired out of us, then we were all going to quit. And so I want to hold true to my word. And it was so tragic because this was such a nice woman.
Do they know if they quit, you don't qualify for unemployment? Just saying.
I know.
No, I mean, forget about the pact she has with actually feeding her children. Forget about that pact. Better to have a pact with some people. I mean, that's just sad and childish.
Did you try to talk this 5th person into staying despite the pact?
We did not. No, because we felt like she made her decision, and if we need to get rid of kind of all of the bad juju, we're going to get rid of all of the bad juju. But it broke our hearts because she was a really nice woman. She just was kind of following them. And so anyway, yeah, that really impacted our production, of course. But it really shook things up. And I'll tell you, the day that we did that, it was a little while ago, was one of the worst days that I've ever had there.
Why?
we're just tired. I'm tired of, it's been 16 months or whatever it's been now of just one thing, like just getting punched in the face. I mean, it's Rocky, right?
But you often hear business owners say, when I finally fired the person or people, everything got better. People thanked me for it. It just lifted a cloud. And the only question was, why didn't we do it sooner? You didn't have that experience?
Well, yeah, but not on that day.
Okay.
On that day, it's pretty freaking horrible. Now, granted, these people were so we had a list in December. We were able to do bonuses for the staff. And so I asked our staff, or I asked our managers to rank people based on on a 1 to 5 scale. And I know Jay says go 1 to 10, but we did 1 to 5. We had a group of people that were 2 out of 5. And attendance is one of the major issues. Attendance, and then just like I said, kind of the shittiness and like not treating people well. So we had this group of people that were a 2 that we knew we needed to do something about, but we're in the middle of a move where there's Christmas, there's, we had huge COVID rates, infection happen in December, blah, 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 blah. So there are all these things. So the time wasn't right. Then when these people who all coincidentally happened to score 2 all decided not to show up to work for a couple days, then that's when we let them go. So we knew it was something that needed to be done. We just weren't ready for it. The timing wasn't right. It's now been a couple weeks, and you're right, Lauren. I mean, it was even after 5 days, it's the hardest thing that we've done because all of us had to jump in and do their jobs so that we could try to keep up. But we're in better shape now, and the environment there is better than it's ever been.
So you keep saying we. What are we talking about? You 2 how many managers are with you on this whole thing?
In this case, it was 3.
Okay, so my question to you is, did those 3 had been working for the company for quite a while?
Yes.
And what was their excuse to you for why these 2s out of 5s were still working there before you got there? Was it the owner that overruled? Did they think there was a problem with having someone doesn't show up to work? I just wonder.
Because that was the culture. The turnover there has been...
So put up with everybody no matter what they do, basically.
Yes, and basically somebody could stay employed if they basically showed up 80% of the time.
Okay.
That was like consistent.
So just for my business language, because I try to keep it in business language, forget about the word culture. Their standards were such that no one set a standard to say, okay, you need to be here 95% of the time in order to keep your job. So the previous owners had set a standard or let a standard find itself, which is, if you show up 80% of the time, we're not going to fire you. And the managers, why would they not go along with what the owners thought? So, okay.
Yes, exactly. And there was, in business terms, there was no accountability, pretty much. So the accountability, people would get fired for just random reasons on random days. So this has forced us, we're putting a point system in place. We've got, anyway, it's forced us to really, really do a much better job and be more clear about expectations and to put standards in place.
Did it have an impact on the morale of people who stayed?
For the first couple days, absolutely. That day we had an all hands meeting where I just kind of laid into them. And I had pretty much every person come up to me over the next week and tell me how embarrassed they were, and how just sorry they were that, blah, 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 blah. So in the beginning, it was a very fearful, people were scared. Am I going to get fired too? And then after a few days, everything has kind of lightened up, and it's a much more community-based thing. And the other thing that has changed, and we've been more intentional, taken a more intentional approach, is with the hiring. Because in the past, basically they just hire anybody that walks in the door. And now working through more intense interview process, including more people in the interview process, being more clear about the expectations.
Wait, can I help you with this? Stop saying expectations. This isn't about expectations. It's about standards. Lower your expectations and raise your standards. The standards are I can expect somebody to be the perfect employee, and it doesn't mean they're going to be that. Whereas a standard is a standard. They didn't know what the standards were. They didn't know they had to show up at a certain time. They didn't know that they had to do a certain quality of work. Because expectations, everybody has different expectations. Whereas standards, once they're put in, these are the standards.
All right. Thank you.
You with me on that?
Yeah. Well, because you were born in like 1930. I mean, and so I get it.
No, I've been through it myself. That's the only reason I know. It's the only reason I know. It took me 20 years to figure out what I just told you in 30 seconds. So.
Okay, thank you. I'll pay you later.
You said that last time. I still haven't gotten any payments. I would take some Stuckey's chocolate even. Or
seriously, right?
Roll.
That's a great point. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate that correction.
And I'm afraid that these days when you hear about everyone talks about corporate culture, you know what? There's certainly something called corporate culture, but usually they're talking about management and they're not the same thing. It's just not the same thing. Management is putting goods out, hiring, doing a thorough interview process, hiring properly, setting standards, explaining to people what those standards are and holding people responsible.
You almost just said it.
I almost did, but I caught myself, you'll notice. Almost doesn't count.
I think you just made Laura's day.
If I can weigh in just a little bit here, though, one of the challenges that we face is, and I'm still working through this, I've only had the manufacturing facility for a little over a month, but we are in a very small town in a rural community. So trying to get the motivated staff is hard sometimes. And then motivating people on, for somewhat repetitive line worker factory jobs is hard. Even if you tell them what the standards are, getting super excited about coming to work every day and sorting pecan shells.
You just answered your own question. No one says they have to be super excited. They just have to show up. I mean, that's the point. They don't have to be super. And everyone talks about motivating everyone. I've found that usually, how many ways are there to motivate people? Maybe 10, money, titles, time off, gifts. Okay. There's 100 ways to demotivate people. And I see people doing it all the time. They demotivate people by yelling. That's a big one. And then when you ask the entrepreneur, well, I'm just passionate. No, you're an asshole. I mean, you know what? I've learned years, and believe me, I used to do it. Yelling is destructive behavior. There's no yelling. There's no need to be yelling.
I think beyond the basics of making sure people are paid and there's bonuses and performance-based incentives, et cetera, there's also, we've talked about culture. It's a sense of belonging, like you're part of a higher purpose. We're doing something really interesting and different here. At Stuckey's, we're trying to make the pecan America's favorite snack nut. We're trying to revive the road trip. Be part of that culture. Be part of our community. Don't just have a job. And so we're working through that because we just bought this company that has been essentially, it's been called Atwell Pecan since 1930. It's actually 7 years before Stuckey's was founded and only been in 2 families that entire time. And the previous owner had the company for 50 years. So it's a transition. So you can't snap your fingers overnight and expect them to get that.
Look at how people get into their sports team. My God, you see them on TV. You think they just won $1 million. This is the happiest day of my life. I think, wow, that somebody won a baseball game and it's the happiest day of your life. My point is, people get into tribal association. People get into, they totally will. I totally agree with you.
People want to belong.
Absolutely. They want to believe in something.
You think how much time people spend at their jobs. If they're working even a 9-to-5 job, just 5 days a week, that's a tremendous amount of your time. And so how can we make that time worth it, where they have a sense of belonging, and it's more than just I'm sorting pecan shells out. We're part of creating something really special. We're making the best quality pecans you can find anywhere.
Which makes people happy. And what a nice mission.
Sense of pride in yourself and your work.
My employees know that we always get the job done for the customers, and they take great pride in that. And we have regular meetings, and we talk about, whether we got a note from a customer, whether we have a comment from a salesperson, they all get it. They get the mission. And I think a lot of companies don't spend any time on indoctrinating them and including them in the mission. And I only know when I hired people from a big factory, this is 30 years ago, they had no idea what was going on. And then one day it just closed up and left town. They had no idea. They never had meetings. They had no idea what the company, I think that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
So just having the once a week 20-minute meeting talking about what's going right, what's going wrong, about a great story about it, it makes people feel good. They belong to something. So I'm sure you will be able to pull that up. Yeah, it's going to take you, I don't know, 6 months or a year.
But communication is key, and also just really basics, knowing people's names. I've started walking down the line, asking people, what's your name? And remembering that. And so next time I'm walking the line, say, hi, Chris, it's good to see you again. How are you, Tony? It's nice to see you.
Especially if their name happens to be Chris and Tony.
Well, those actually are two names of people who work for Stuckey. So
I am always petrified. I have to tell you, I'm always petrified of using the wrong name, and it's frustrating.
Well, in those cases, I just say, I'm sorry, I can't recall your name. Is it Tony? I think it's Tony. And, but really, I work hard at remembering people's names.
I want to go back and just tie up Laura's situation if we can. Do you still have any of the twos left, or are they all gone now?
I think we might have, yes, we have one. We have two. We have two twos left, and we just had serious conversations with them last week. So we're going to give them a chance.
And what are you trying to get the 2 to turn into?
A 3.
See, this is why I like my 10 better, because I believe you should shoot to get 8, 9s, and 10s. Sometimes, for whatever reason, maybe the labor is hard to get. Maybe a 7's okay, but you're going all the way from a 2 to I've never succeeded, ever. I've succeeded in taking a 7, turning him into an 8, and 8, 9. I've never succeeded in taking a 3 and turning him into a 7. Without a lobotomy, I haven't been able to.
Did you try the lobotomy?
Yeah, no, I think you can absolutely take a 9 employee and turn him into a 3 with bad management. I think you can ruin a good employee by saying the wrong thing, by doing the wrong thing.
Yes.
I've seen it, but I've also never personally, and God knows I've tried. I've spent years trying. I've never been able to turn a 5 into an 8. And maybe it's just the wrong place for them. Maybe somewhere else they would be an 8.
Jay makes a great point. The most critical part of staff training is hiring the right people.
Absolutely.
In the first place. And it's better to take the time to hire the right person and have some delay there, because the worst thing you can do for a company is hire the wrong person.
And I did it I'm telling you, I didn't know what I was doing with hiring. 10 years, I just went through person after person after person. And I've said this on the podcast before. And then I hired a hiring guru, and my business changed dramatically.
Yes. Yep, it's worth it. And even though I haven't only been in Stuckey's for a year, I've had many roles where I've had to hire people. And like you, Jay, I have the scars to prove it of hiring the wrong people. It's awful.
And I just had this conversation yesterday with my HR person. She called references for this particular person, which is kind of an important role here. She got glowing references. And I said, Angie, have we ever hired somebody that got glowing references that didn't work out? She couldn't think of one. So I am confident that calling references is a critical part of this story. And if you get great references for a person, you're probably in really good shape. If you can't get references, or the references act like you're pulling teeth when you call them, that's a concern.
Oh, yeah. Well, I call people that aren't necessarily on the references, too. Places where they've worked. And that's where LinkedIn comes in. It can tell you who your contacts in common are. Because, of course, they're going to list references that are going to say good things about them. So it's important to dig deeper if it's a key position. And pretty much any position is key.
The fact is, you can do this 10 times, and 9 out of 10 times you didn't learn anything. That one time that you didn't hire that one person, oh my God. I mean, what's that worth? What's that worth not to hire the wrong person 1 out of 10 times? It's worth a lot, is the point.
One last thing with you, Laura. You've explained what happened there. Do you feel you learned something about this? Is there something that you would do differently if you had it to do over?
I definitely feel like I've learned something. I think we all have, we being the management team, Jay, and the staff. Would I do something differently? That's a tough question. Look, I've given, and we, the team, we have given 150% of ourselves. So sure. But I don't know where I would have found the energy. I don't know where we would have found the time. I think we have just done the best that we could. So kind of, but kind of not. Does that make any sense?
It does.
Yeah. So sure. I wish things had been different.
You might have very well done everything you can. You walked into a crummy situation that needed to be cleaned up over time.
Well, and remember, we hired a general manager that had worked there for years and years and years in January, and then she didn't work out. So in May, we had to switch, and we promoted the HR manager into the general manager who had never done that role. And then, and then we brought in another new person into upper management in September. And so we're all kind of discovering what our strengths and our weaknesses are. Who's the structured one? Who's the really good manager? Who's the blah, blah, blah. And I think we're in a really good spot now, and it's becoming very clear, but it's been a painful process.
For 16 months, you've done extremely well. I hope you're not torturing yourself, because that's a tough thing to walk into.
I mean, for, one of the first times in my life, I'm not torturing myself. It's been very painful, but it just is what it is, and so I just keep the only way to get through it is to get through it.
Jay, maybe you can help by putting it in perspective. It does sound painful, but I'm guessing you've been through in 40 years, a more painful firing situation.
I've learned that if you want to run a warm, wonderful company, you have to do some cold, unpleasant things. And anybody who thinks you can't or don't is naive, that there are some people on this earth that just don't fit in your company. You've given it a good shot. You've trained them. You've hired them. And it doesn't work. And one of the big learning curves of being the boss is sometimes you have to fire people, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is, and you have to do it. It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a bad boss if you don't. Why? Because if they shouldn't be working for you, either the customers aren't getting what they're paying for, or the other employees are not enjoying coming to work because of this person. The fact of the matter is there's no ability in it.
I want a story. What's your worst firing story?
You start out by yourself, you hire 5 people, 10 people, you get to a day where you think, God, I need some kind of manager here. So I hired the manager person, and he had an art background, and it was going well. So we had maybe 20 employees, and things were going okay for a couple of years. And then slowly but surely, I was growing the company. Now I'm up to 40 people. Now I'm up to 50 people. Now I'm hiring a different level of employee for different jobs. And this person was clearly over their head, and it got more and more stressful, and I eventually had to fire him. And I will tell you, what I've learned from this is, if you think that you're going to grow a company from 4 of you to 100, and you're going to have all those same people with you from the beginning, that's almost impossible, if not impossible, because the same kind of person that joins a company when there's 5 employees is not necessarily the same person you need when you have 100. And you could say, oh, well, can't you put them back into another position? Yeah, sometimes that works, but frequently it doesn't. Frequently it turns into them getting mad at you because you're not paying attention to them anymore, and blah, blah, blah. And it was really brutal. And then it gets personal, because in the beginning, you're going out to dinner with your wife and them, and you're friends with everybody. And then you come home and you tell your spouse, I have to get rid of so-and-so. And the first thing out of their mouth is, well, you can't do that. They're our friend. And I would say that's one of the growing up stages of a business, that it was brutal. And then I've had a couple more since then, and they've gotten easier because I see it sooner than I used to. But if you're growing, the fact is you outgrow people sometimes. If you're not growing, maybe not. Maybe you can have the same people working with you for 40 years. But I think when you grow, I've observed when a company grows, your needs change. Am I wrong?
There have been a lot of books written about that.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the exact same experience. The staff at Jimmy Beans right now is probably 90% different than it was 5 years ago, because we went through that same trajectory. Everybody that we had 5 years ago had kind of started at the beginning when we had 5, 10 people. We all kind of grew with it and then just really hit a wall.
I mean, I have lots of people with me for 30 years now, but that was after I had critical mass at that point. When you've got 20, 30 employees, that might be the same kind of employee when you have 100. But when you got 5, it's frequently a different person.
No, it's so interesting that you would say that about the going to dinners, and, it's this kind of natural, I guess, jealousy, that I'm not getting the same attention. I'm not your right-hand man anymore. Now you've got other people that you're paying attention to.
You hit the phrase. That's the problem. It's the right-hand person. person thing. That's exactly the problem. And that's exactly, it went bad as soon as I hired a professional person to work in the accounting office of all things. And he started going off on her like crazy man stuff. And I had to sit down with him and say, you think it's appropriate to be talking to her like that? And he got, I hope he's not listening. I'm assuming he's not. This was a long time ago. He gets a little teary-eyed and said, I'll have to think about it. Well, young, naive Jay thought that he was embarrassed that he was getting out of control. And in hindsight, I realized, no, he felt like I just sold him down the river. He thought that, he thought I should allow him to be yelling at people at the top of his lungs. And she didn't do anything. I mean, he was really just picking on her because he saw me spending some time with her with other issues. And yeah, it's a problem that the right-hand person syndrome when you've got 5 employees, it's a problem, or 10 employees.
And the first time you bring somebody in from the outside that skips ranks.
Yes. I think you, me, and just about everyone else, I think this is a common problem in business.
But then it's like once you break the seal, once we brought that first person in and they were successful and, and some of the people who were the most angry or frustrated about it left, then, now we've started bringing in more people who skip ranks, if you will, or jump ranks. And now it's just part of the culture.
Well, hopefully it's also going to motivate people to see if you have the capacity and you really are qualified, you can rise in the ranks, but it's not you're not entitled. And we can bring in people from the outside who do have the skill sets we need. So hopefully it motivates people up and down the chain.
I have no greater glory in my mind than looking at people that have been with me that started on the line, that were just, they were working in the factory, and here it is 30 years later, they're managers, and there's no greater, there's lots of things that give you a lot of grief when you own a business. Well, this is one of the great things, that you've taken people that had no expectations of their own abilities, that really had no they thought they'd be working on a factory line the whole life, and slowly but surely you groomed them and gave them confidence, and then one day they've got 15 people reporting to them. It's a beautiful thing.
I was telling somebody the other day, she's got a smaller business, and she's like, my customers that I really pay attention to my customers. And I have these great relationships with my customers. And I don't know if I want to grow. And I said, well, what I've experienced is that now that I've grown, my personal customers, the people I have the relationships with, are my employees. So those are the people that I get to know. Those are the people that I'm interested in watching them grow their skills. And it really kind of reframed things for me to realize that now these are my customers. The people that work for us.
With that being said, if she's happy with that and she makes enough money, hey, I respect that.
100%.
Yeah, no, I'm in the frame business. Most frame shops have 2 or 3 employees, and some of them are very happy and make enough living, and they're happy with it. I don't try to tell everyone you need to have 20 employees or 30.
Not at all. And that's kind of the conversation was, pick one. The grass is not greener. It's just different.
One last question. Has it been harder to fire people this year because of the pandemic? Are you reluctant to take that big last step, knowing that people face a pandemic and possibly losing health insurance?
For me personally, in a couple of situations, yes, but for the most part, actually, no. It's like if you can't show up at work for no reason during this time, then you don't want a job. We have been over backwards. We've done so much to support everybody at work, especially in Texas. And, to behave this way. You know
what? I have a phrase for that. It's about the unwilling, the unable, or in some cases, the unexplainable. Like, can you explain how somebody would leave a job they like because they made some high school pact with coworkers? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but that's what's out there. It's unexplainable. It makes no sense, but it is what it is. And at the end of the day, we can't make that all our problem.
All right, guys. My thanks to Stephanie Stuckey, Laura Zander, and Jay Goltz. Once again, appreciate your sharing, taking the time. Wait. Don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, Send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN@21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.